Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeon solo video. In today's episode, we'll be using the best shield generator in the game, Dieci Rodion. Being the first discard identity, or at least I think she is, maybe Molar Office was first, I can't remember, she has quite a few interesting things going on. First, she's a decent sinking identity. With her only source of count being on her skill 3 and all of her skills being at least 3 coins, I can't in good faith call her a good sinking identity. However, she does have one thing going for her in that regard, which is she has the ability to fuel the best sinking ego in the game, Rhyme Shank, and that more than makes up for her poor sinking application otherwise. When it comes to soloing though, she is easily one of the best solo units in the game, and it's entirely due to her discard mechanic. Whenever she discards a skill, it gives her shield equivalent to the rank of the skill discarded. Combining this with both Dieci Yi-Song and Mersault's support passives makes it so whenever she discards a skill 3, she gains over 100 shield instantly. While that is a very substantial amount of shield and essentially prevents her from taking any damage ever, the best part of her kit has absolutely nothing to do with the shield at all. It's her passive, which does two things. First, it gives her upwards of 50% bonus damage depending on how much damage she took the previous turn, and when you don't actually care about taking hits, this is pretty much always active. But the second and most interesting aspect is that when she has 3 insight, which basically means when she discards a skill 3, she will automatically cleanse a single debuff at the end of the turn. This is an incredibly powerful effect, especially when it comes to soloing, and it is also one of the rarest effects in the entire game. Only Dieci Rodion and Mersault's Regret Ego have this effect so far. Because it happens at turn end, it has no effect on statuses such as Fragility or Paralysis, as those fall off on their own. But when it comes to lingering statuses like Bleed or Rupture, it is absolutely invaluable. To start this run, we take Red Order and Melted Spring for our starting gifts, and head into Noggle and Hammer for the first floor. The boss for this floor is the great and powerful Guido. Normally, N-Corp is fairly scary with the sheer amount of debuffs they can inflict, but with our auto cleanse, the only thing we have to be afraid of is Guido's insta-stagger skill, Be Cleansed of Sin. With the amount of damage we are capable of doing, thanks to both N-Corp being weak to blunt and our passive, they frankly don't stand a chance without Guido's gimmick. We take Thorny Path as our reward and head into C for the next floor. Here we buy Greycoat, Lowest Star, Twinkling Scrap, and an extra skill 3. We also find Midwinter Nightmare before making it to the boss against the King Trash Crab. The only reason the crabs are ever any challenge is due to the rupture they can inflict. But due to both the cleansing mechanic and the astronomical amount of shield we generate, we can simply ignore everything that is happening and focus down the King Crab, finishing the fight in a very impressive 3 turns. We take Skeletal Crumbs for our reward and head into Dregs of the Manor for the next floor. Here we fuse Broken Compass before making it to the boss against Hindley, though this fight is incredibly easy and pretty boring, so instead let's talk about a more interesting boss, the Dead Rabbits boss. Honestly, this fight wasn't really any harder than Hindley. The only real difference is that this one does a lot more damage a lot quicker. Fortunately, we have the best counter in the game to a ton of damage, and that's a ton of shield. Really though, the only reason I want to show this fight over Hindley is to showcase the sheer amount of damage this guy is capable of doing. On the 3rd turn, we literally double our health bar, and he still gets insanely close to doing actual damage.
알다시피 직접 알게 한다. 깨달았나? 공격을 적합하진 않아 보이네. 관리법을 적어도 칼날이 잘 드네요. 아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠? 적들이 흔들흔들 직접 알게 한다. 승객이 따끔한 건 먹였어.
We take Little and To Be Naughty plushie for our reward and head into Treadwell Sloth for the next floor. Here we buy another skill 3, Bloody Gadget and Grandeur, while also fusing Distant Star before making it to the boss against the Dream Devouring Slit Current. This guy is usually an intimidating encounter, and this time is no exception. Due to the sheer amount of sinking he is capable of inflicting, you're basically forced to clash with his Blind Obsession skill on the second turn, or else risk detonating due to Sinking Deluge. This would also be the case for Dieci Rodion, if not for the fact that we cleansed the sinking stack that we acquired from the first turn. Because of this, the maximum amount of damage we can take from Sinking Deluge is close to 200 thanks to Rodion's Gloom Fatality. Certainly dangerous, but more than enough to be able to survive with the sheer amount of shield we are capable of generating. Obviously, by tanking that, it ends up corroding us, which could only be considered a tiny inconvenience. Now that we don't have to worry about the Blind Obsession skill anymore, we can completely ignore everything the fish is doing and beat it to death with our bare hands.
직접 알게 한다.
훌륭해. 이외에 특별히 찾는
종이 하나가 끊어졌네요. 이제 좀 수월해지겠어요. 조금만 더 힘내자. 직접 알게 한다. 칼날이 잘 드네요. 아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠?
We take Headless Portrait for our reward and receive Illusory Hunt as a bonus before heading into the Evil Defining as the final floor. Here we buy Special Contract before running into the hardest encounter of the run against Pequod Town. This fight was absolute misery, and I spent well over a half hour on this fight alone. The problem here is threefold. First, due to all the enemy buffs we've been collecting, winning a clash without using Ego is literally impossible. Second, even with our ridiculous shield generation, it's not enough. Being weak to pierce damage, and with them all having 4-coin skills, they can easily break through our shield and stagger us. And last, due to the corrosion from Silt Current, we lack resources to effectively Ego spam. We also failed a previous event check that destroyed our sanity, but honestly this is more of a positive than a negative, as we wouldn't be able to win clashes anyway, and it makes it easier to land tails when corroding Ego. Getting out of this fight is a royal pain in the ass. We need to survive the first couple of turns while losing clashes the entire time in order to generate shield. We're then forced to corrode both Pursuance and Rhymeshank in order to actually do damage and be able to survive while also staggering a few enemies. Once I manage to actually kill one enemy, the fight becomes significantly easier. All that's left is continue to generate as much shield as possible while waiting to gain more skill slots than the enemy, so you can one-sided attack and not have to worry about the impossible clashes.
흔적들이 흔들흔들. 직접 알게 한다. 내 뼈가 배고파 있어. 직접 알게 한다.
걱정 마시오.
직접 알게 하니라. 맞는 거야. 숨기기 딱콩 한 번 먹었어. 맞는 거야. 칼날이 잘 드네요. 아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠? 직원들이 개체를 제압. 직접 알게 합니다. 맞는 거야.
Before we move on to the final boss, I would like to take a moment to mention the first failed run and how it failed. Spice Bush Dongbek. A fight that, as anyone who has soloed it before knows, is completely impossible for any identity that does not have an evade. With that said though, if there was one identity who could do it, it would be Dieci Rodion. The reason this fight is impossible is because Dongbek always inflicts at least 6 of her own status effect blooming, which, if you ever have more than 5, puts you in a special state where you instantly lose if you have no allies. Dieci Rodion's cleanse would theoretically be able to work around this. Unfortunately, due to the way the game is coded, all effects from status effects occur before the cleanse happens, and with the special state occurring at turn end, it always happens before the cleanse. That said, Mersault could probably do it as long as his speed is lower than Dongbek's. Returning to the successful run, we buy one last skill 3 and head into the final boss against the Pequod Trio. This fight, just like the previous one, also has impossible clashes. The difference this time is we don't have to deal with any of them. By using the simple yet effective strategy of completely ignoring everything that's happening and hitting them till they die, we can easily win the fight no problem.
걱정 마시오.
직접 알게 한다. 직접 알게 한다. 연극과 너무 생각이 없었어. 직접 알게 한다. 깨달기 딱콩 한 번 먹었어. 깨달았나? 정말 공격. 다음 끝을 영상과 연결되어 이 직원에게도 도움이 될지도 몰라. 직원들이 개체를 제압하는 데 성공했어요. 직접 알게 한다. 깨달았나? 나도 그렇게는 안 했을 것 같은데. 나한테 많이 피곤하겠지만 무지하니까 방법이 적절하지 않았을까. 직접 알게 한다. 깨달았나? 깨달아 뭘 잘못했는지 나한테 드라마에서 봤어. 직접 알게. 꽤 잘 드네요. 아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠? 맞는 거. 결국 내 공부가 부족하지 않았다는 거네. 그치? 좋았어.
And that's how I soloed Mirror Dungeon 4 hard using only Dieci Rodion. Truly an icon of the Unga Bunga lifestyle. Her shield generation is literally the best in the game, yet I would say the best part of her is actually the cleanse mechanic. I wish there were more identities that had it. Anyway, that's it from me. Like and subscribe to not miss next time where we'll be using this identity. Goodbye.